to bring up the great Sujata Gibson.
Thank you, Michael. That was such a nice introduction. But I have to make one correction. I didn't win that case that we struck down the mandate with. We won that case. We could not have done it without all of you. And I know this because there's something called the 3.5% rule that I'd like to talk about, and that's what won that case. In my other life, I'm a litigator and a civil rights attorney most of the time, but I also teach part-time at Cornell Law School. And what I teach is movement law. And now I should give a disclaimer, nothing I'm saying here is the views of Cornell, they are my own views. But they do have to do with my academic work, and that is in movement law. And there's some really amazing research coming out about what is effective in terms of resistance and movements. And a scholar named Erica Chenoweth realized, she did an empirical study of all of the big movements in modern history, and she was able to determine, number one, that nonviolent resistance works twice as well. You're 100% more likely to win if you have a nonviolent movement. And number two, there's something called the 3.5% rule. There was not a single case in all of the cases she studied, and she studied virtually all of them, where people did not, when people got to 3.5% of sustained resistance to a policy or issue, sustained resistance, they always won. Every single time. There was not one case where people got to 3.5% sustained resistance where they did not ultimately prevail. Now the case we're talking about with the medical professionals, as you probably know, in 2021, Governor Hochul enacted a COVID-19 vaccine mandate. Well, technically the Department of Health did under Governor Cuomo, but 10 days later, Governor Hochul took office and she directed them to remove the religious exemption, which meant that most people had no possibility of an accommodation or exemption. 34,000 healthcare workers lost their jobs. Now, all of us jumped in with lawsuits before anybody lost their jobs. Bobby Kennedy and I brought a lawsuit in federal court with the help of Children's Health Defense. There were many other ones, and they were good lawsuits, but the courts weren't ready to hear them, and they got stuck in federal court, and we knew it was going to be years. So Children's Health Defense and the Medical Professionals for Informed Consent group took a chance on my theory that we had a new cause of action in state court, and we needed to bring it after it had been a year of sustained resistance. These 34,000 people stayed out of work for a year, holding true to their principles. We filed this case in state court, and we won. And yeah, you know, I mean, our legal theories were different, you could say all that, but in both cases the legal theories were good. What had changed is that the courts had had time to see, the culture had had time to catch up and see that we aren't going anywhere. They can't just mandate your jobs and think everybody's gonna fold. They saw that well, let me actually tell you one interesting fact. Governor Hochul admitted in her responding papers to us that about 3.5% of the workforce had been fired or had to leave the field because of this mandate. And that was a very exciting number for me to see, because it just proves this data, that if you can sustain that, if they can see this, the culture will follow. So that is why I say that I didn't win that lawsuit. You guys, we all won that lawsuit. And I just want to thank you and let you know that what you're doing right now matters. The fact that you're out here matters. The fact that you didn't comply matters. And we're not done bringing these lawsuits. And we're never going to stop. Children's Health Defense is never going to stop. I am never going to stop. So Governor Hochul, if you're listening, legislators, if you're listening and thinking about passing these illegal laws, like removing the religious exemption from all employment contexts for adults, you should know we will never stop litigating. And these people right here, and tens of hundreds of thousands more, are never going to stop fighting. And we are not going to allow our rights to be trampled. So this, some of these bills that are up right now are very scary. And one of the ones that I am the most concerned about is this bill to remove the religious exemption for employees. And why am I concerned about it? Well, number one, it shows a fairly clear intent that the phase of adult vaccine mandates is really just at its beginning stages. The COVID vaccine mandate was a test run, and it is not going to be long before the pharmaceutical companies see this new captive market that they can start pushing their vaccines on. And we have to, the children were like the canaries in the coal mine, and the children should be the ones that are protected at all costs, but people got complacent. They thought, well, it's not me, I don't have to really fight for it if my kids are through school or they were already vaccinated, whatever, let's, just kind of put it out of sight, out of mind. But now I think a lot of people are waking up to really the lack of oversight in this industry, the problems and the safety issues, and just the blatant unconstitutionality of forcing us to endure medical interventions that we don't want to take. It is our choice. It is our sacred choice to decide what we do with our bodies, whether we take a medication or not. So sorry about that feedback. So I think it's a pretty clear intention when they're talking about removing the religious exemption for adults and in the employment context, that really means that more are on the way. So, we have won major victories in the last year or two, and we're continuing to do that. These cases like the medical professionals for informed consent case, striking down the healthcare mandate, are just the beginning. The dominoes are falling and we're winning cases. But this is just the end of the beginning. A lot more is to come. So it is vital that we keep coming out. Even when we think we're out of the woods, we're not out of the woods. We need to show up every time here, and we need to bring all of our friends next time. And keep this in their minds. We are not going anywhere. We're not going to forget what they did to us. This isn't just going to be conveniently gone because the mandate is gone right now. We all know, we all made sacrifices. Most of you made unimaginable sacrifices. And what you have gone through is not okay. And all of you have families who saw what happened to you. And all of you know somebody else who did have to comply against their will, against their religious beliefs, against their sacred choices about their own bodies. They had to violate those. And none of us are going to forget. So we need to make that very clear to the legislators. And I'm very excited to be here with you today to do that. And I hope I see you many more times. Every time that one of these things happens, we're going to show up and we're going to show them we're not going anywhere.